Duty howdy everyone, Wamboo here, and today on So Bad It's Good, I've got a fun, colorful, and lighthearted Sonic game. Oh, my mistake. We actually have a dark, dull, and edgy Shadow game. But that's okay, because it's also fun, colorful, and lighthearted. But also not really. Yep, we're doing Shadow the Hedgehog.
That means today we're not gonna joke around. Instead, we're just gonna brood and be sad and learn about the dark secrets of our past.
Okay, not doing that. Now, at this point, the Sonic franchise has pretty much become notorious for occasionally releasing completely awful games. This game, though, Shadow the Hedgehog, or as it's lovingly nicknamed, Shadow the Edgehog, seems to have left the fanbase pretty divided. Everyone I've talked to about it seems to either viscerally hate it or have it as a guilty pleasure. As for which camp I'm in, well, let's find out, starting with presentation. This certainly took a lot of people back at first. I don't think anyone was really expecting the Sonic franchise to suddenly go for darker thematics. I mean, this franchise was rated E for everyone, and now there's a 10 next to it. It's really scary, you guys. Okay, to give it a bit of credit, the cinematics are actually pretty decent in my opinion. As opposed to something like Sonic 06, the Sonic characters really don't seem all that out of place, and it does create a bit of a grim atmosphere. In-game, however, it looks more like your typical Sonic game, except duller, and with rock metal music and guns. While some of the environments look alright, it's probably uglier than the other 3D Sonic games of its time visually. It's just as cheesy, but somehow even more stiff and awkward. Even the soundtrack in this game really isn't all that good. In terms of standouts, there's I Am and All Hail Shadow, the latter of which stands out for just being embarrassing. That can pretty much be said about all the game's attempts at being gritty, though. Hell, even the menu sounds are trying to be edgy. It's almost like they were trying to emphasize a certain thing about this game or something. No, please, don't shoot. But you know, more on these weird bullet-shooting devices later. It's time to dive into the deeper parts of the game, starting with its story. It begins with Shadow standing around pondering life, by which I mean he doesn't remember a thing about it. Yep, it's your classic amnesia story. All he can remember is his name, and that he has a tragic backstory involving someone named Maria. And then a remarkably convenient alien invasion just sorta happens out of nowhere. And really, this couldn't have come at a better time, because this evil alien named Black Doom tells him that he knows the dark secrets of his past, and that he should find the Chaos Emeralds if he wants to learn about it. Because those things just do whatever anyone wants them to do, apparently. And then he blows Shadow up. Okay, no, Shadow doesn't blow up. He listens to Black Doom and goes to find the Chaos Emeralds. From there, the story can go a bunch of different directions, depending on how the player wants it to go. With each level, you can complete either a neutral mission, a dark mission, or a hero mission. The events going throughout the story and the levels the player has to do all depends on what alliance they take. Not exactly all that bad as a concept, but now there's its execution, and, it's a giant mess. I get that with this kind of story, you have to puzzle things together by playing each route, but here that isn't really the case. Different events do happen based on your choices, but it never really feels like your actions have much of an impact, especially since the mission objectives are seemingly random at points. Killing gun soldiers or black aliens? Okay, that makes sense, I understand that. But finding CDs? Getting 400 rings? Racing Sonic to the Chaos Emerald? Lighting giant lanterns? Why?
They're part of my special defenses.
Okay, yeah, whatever you say, Eggman. For a prime example of how poorly these missions are thought out, I'm gonna point my stub of a hand right to the Central City level. So in this mission, there are big bombs and small bombs planted around the city by Black Doom and his army. Knuckles wants you to defuse 20 small bombs, while Black Doom wants you to detonate the 5 big bombs, and you have 8 minutes to do either one before all the bombs blow up. Now, first of all, even if you were to handle the smaller bombs, the bigger bombs would still be an issue, so Central City is fucked anyway. But as short-sighted as Knuckles is being, Black Doom is an even bigger idiot. You want me to detonate the big bombs before they explode? What's the point of that? They're already going to explode. And yeah, this kind of thing makes any facet of the game's story hard to take seriously. The hero characters feel like they're all completely uninvolved with the main story, so there's really not much to say about them. The one character from Gun just acts completely irrationally regardless of which alliance you're on. Eggman is trying to take over the world, but just in some non-specific way. And Black Doom is just a really dumb villain. Aside from the Central City shenanigans, he regularly has Shadow go after things that are being guarded by his own troops. He just comes off as this clumsy idiot who has no idea how to command his army, and only barely thinks through his ideas. The dumbest character in Shadow the Hedgehog, however, and arguably the biggest issue with the story, might just be Shadow himself. Seriously, he is totally brainless. He just goes wherever anyone else tells him to go, which occasionally results in silliness like this.
We need your help to hack into his computer.
Yeah, Shadow, that's not what they meant by hacking, but okay, whatever works, I guess. More importantly, though, Shadow's motivation is to learn about his past and nothing more. This is a major issue for two reasons. One, Sonic Adventure 2 already went over his backstory, so unless we're learning anything new about him, which we don't until the last story, then there's no real intrigue going on here. The second issue is that Shadow is just really stupid. Okay, yeah, I know, I've said that about everyone at this point, but seriously, Shadow just believes every person who says that they know about his past, regardless of whether or not he's obviously being tricked. So each ending has him making some totally off-base conclusion about his identity.
And now, I am the most powerful hedgehog in the world!
Well, seeing as you're the only hedgehog that can use a gun, yeah.
No one can tell me what to do.
Except for everybody.
I am Shadow Android, a copy of Shadow the Hedgehog.
Your brain is just a bag of hammers, isn't it? It's kinda odd because it feels like the type of game that exists to reinvent Shadow as a character, but then it just sorta dumps him down instead. It's a little tragic, if not also pretty funny. So overall thoughts on the story, it's wasted potential and really poorly thought out. Let's talk gameplay now. Unsurprisingly, Shadow the Hedgehog plays out like a typical Sonic game, but with a few alterations here and there. Basic platforming is actually solid enough. The homing attack can be pretty finicky at times, but that's a problem that a lot of Sonic games suffer from. And while the wall jumping also works pretty well, the same cannot be said about some of the other powers. For example, there's the ability to punch and kick enemies, which is completely ineffective most of the time. There's also the Chaos moves. Doing bad deeds builds up Chaos Blast, while doing good deeds builds up Chaos Control. Chaos Blast is actually a little overpowered, if I'm honest. It's super easy to spam half the time since it recharges a little bit whenever it's used. Chaos Control, on the other hand, is a detriment more often than not. Since a bunch of the objectives require methodically searching for enemies or something of the sort, skipping parts of the level with Chaos Control can actually make life a lot harder. Speaking of the levels, they're designed pretty badly. They clearly seem to be designed with the idea of going fast, which would be fine, but as I pretty much already stated, the whole nature of methodically searching means that rushing through the level is a pretty inefficient way of completing it. Not that they're very good at keeping momentum going anyway. Seriously though, don't even get me started on the more open-ended levels. If this was all I had to say about the game, I'd conclude that it was just a below-average Sonic game. But then there's the elephant in the room. After all, there was one little thing that did cause some controversy. You all know it. It's the way Shadow uses the word damn in pretty hilarious ways.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Oh, and also guns, too. Yeah, the choice to give one of the most popular Sonic characters a gun evoked a less than positive response initially. And really, why not? Shadow is better than that. He wouldn't use such savage weapons as guns. We're talking about the guy who used a cannon to blow up half the moon and... okay, maybe this argument sounds a little silly. Alright, well, you know, still, the Sonic franchise is a kid-friendly franchise, and then here's this entry being slightly older kid-friendly. Okay, so in retrospect, the controversy surrounding the guns in this game is kinda silly. I guess you could argue that they aren't fitting for a Sonic game, but really it's not that out of place. In fact, I personally think they're pretty funny. The guns themselves are just the goofiest things. For God's sakes, he's holding a bazooka with one arm on the front of the box, and I can't begin to tell you what a bad idea that is. He'd end up fried faster than poultry at KFC. Speaking of which, look at this. This is a chicken gun. This is in the game, the chicken gun. Really, a weapon that just springs readily to mind when you think of Shadow the Hedgehog. Truly, these guns are super hardcore. So hardcore that they don't even need to reload, they just fire until they're out of ammo. If there's one thing I can say about the guns though, it's that they make the already ridiculously easy bosses even easier. It's actually pretty anticlimactic. Giant robots and demons suddenly seem way less intimidating when you could just gun them all down pretty easily. And well, that's Shadow the Hedgehog, and man, we have a lot this time. We've got forced edginess, ugly visuals, a messy narrative, asinine mission objectives, silly game mechanics, poor level design, and pathetically easy bosses. So final verdict, is Shadow the Hedgehog so bad it's good? Well, the game is terrible and I never want to play it again, but yeah, kind of. As a concept, it may just be the dumbest Sonic game to date. There's the completely ridiculous storyline as stated before, and the guns do make this game quite a spectacle at times, but there's also a lot of bullshit in the game that makes it kind of arduous to play through, and not necessarily in the good way. As a so bad it's good game, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. It's a passing grade, but not the sort of thing I would absolutely recommend doing a hate play of. This has been so bad it's good. At parts. Which is why instead of killing it, I'll just send it to a parallel dimension. Wambu out!
Hey, it's Shadow! Good timing. The black creatures have huge bombs that they're trying to set off here in the city.
There's no bomb! Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Hold your fire.
Stay down!
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Let's go to the deduction board.